right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our fifth and final event in our Australia's Amazing Islands series. This series is brought to you by Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and the Roots and Shoots Australia Resource Box for Schools program. Roots and Shoots Australia is an initiative of the Jane Goodall Institute Australia. Roots and Shoots Australia helps mentor and empower young people to help make a difference for animals, people, and our environment. So if you haven't visited before, take some time and visit the Roots and Shoots website right here. Sign up for the program and find out everything you could possibly want to know about the program. And of course, you can find it on social media as well. So you can find the Facebook page here, Roots and Shoots AU. There you can find the latest news and of course, find your local group. All right. Well, my name is Joe Grabowski, and I have been your host for this series. I run a not-for-profit called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We connect classrooms around the world with scientists, adventurers, explorers, and conservationists for virtual guest speaking and field trips. If you want to check out what we do, you can head to exploringbytheseat.com. We have a huge selection of Ocean Week events coming up that you won't want to miss. So if you just do /Ocean Week or check under special events, you can find them there. Now, most are geared towards North America, but all of the events will record live and be available for students and classrooms to use anytime that they want. All right, so our fifth and final island, we are going to take a little trip, a little virtual field trip to Kangaroo Island. We're very lucky to have Topa Petit joining us tonight. She is an associate researcher at the Kangaroo Island Research Station with a special interest in plant-animal interactions, particularly pollination. Her research on bat pollination systems ranges from the Pacific to the Caribbean. In South Australia, including Kangaroo Island, she studies a diversity of vertebrates, invertebrates, plants, and their interactions. Her research has strong implications for conservation, extending to marine ecosystems. She currently works as an associate professor in wildlife ecology at the University of South Australia. So I'm going to bring Topa in live with me right now. Hi, Topa. How are you doing today?
Hi, Joe. Nice to see you. And hello to everyone watching.
All right. Well, yes. Great to see you. We've got a great group joining us of students. Lots of groups are saying hi in the chat right now. If I take a quick scan here, I see Perth. I see Beaudesert. I see Sydney, New South Wales. I see more in Perth, in Victoria. So lots of groups. Keep those greetings coming in. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And Topa, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Oh, I think you did a great job introducing me. I'm also an associate researcher on some other islands in the world. The island of Curacao, where I'm an associate researcher with the Karmabi, which is an institute there, and the Footprint Foundation, Curacao Footprint Foundation. I'm also an associate researcher in Fiji, believe it or not.
Whoa.
So lots of islands. I'm an associate researcher with Nature Fiji Marangetiviti. And of course, Kangaroo Island Research Station, where I do a lot of my research in association with lots of organizations. So I'm really, really interested in islands. And today I'm going to take you to Kangaroo Island with a movie world premiere. So all of you watching, you'll be watching a premiere never shown to any audience before. It's very exciting, isn't it?
All right, I think so. And I say, why delay? I'm going to cue it up right now. We're going to check it out. Get ready, pay attention. We'll have a Kahoot quiz afterwards. And then we'll use the rest of the time we have together for a little Q&A action with Topa. So give me just a moment here to cue it up on my screen. Here it comes. Okay. There we go. Loading up for us here. And there we go. Perfect. So actually, I'm going to have to just do something a little bit different here. Just bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to appear and disappear for a second. All right. Toba, I got a fancy brand new computer today, but I had to give it permission to share my screen for the first time. So we have that permission now.
I'm glad.
So we can check out the world premiere, which is very exciting, of the video right here. So, Toba, as it's loading, can you just give us an idea of how long it took you to bring together?
Oh my God, it was a month of work, guys. I hope you like it.
A month of work. Well, there we go.
I had to ask a lot of friends to participate, and I had to search through a lot of photos. Yeah.
All right.
So I hope you like it.
Oh, I have no doubt that the students will. And it's loaded. Here we go. And the premiere begins now.
My name is Topa. I'm an ecologist with many research projects on Kangaroo Island, and I'm taking you on an expedition. Kangaroo Island is the third largest island of Australia, but it was not always an island. Professor Bob Borman tells us that the present coastline of Kangaroo Island has only existed near its present form since sea level reached its current level about 7,000 years ago. Approximately 22,000 years ago, sea level was about 125 meters below present sea level, and Kangaroo Island was part of the South Australian mainland, something that has happened at least 8 times in the last 800,000 years. Kangaroo Island holds an important place in the storyline of 3 of South Australia's First Nations, Narunga, Kaurna, and Ngarrindjeri.
Kangaroo Island has one of the most unique and mysterious archaeological records in Australia. Prior to 10,000 years ago, the island was actually part of the mainland. And then as ocean levels rose, they flooded the Backstairs Passage, creating Kangaroo Island. Like everywhere in Australia, Aboriginal people would have been here early on, prior to 40,000 years ago. Yet, when the Backstairs Passage flooded, they became the first islanders, those that remain. And their archaeological record is unique compared to the rest of the country. And they made stone artifacts, sometimes called the Cartan tools, that you'll find here on the island. And around 3,000 years ago, a great mystery happened, and the Kangaroo Islanders disappeared, and we still don't know why today.
In 1802, Matthew Flinders of England and Nicolas Baudin of France were exploring the southern coast of Australia on sailing ships. They met accidentally just off the coast of Kangaroo Island. Many places on the island now have names given by Flinders in English and Baudin in French. The island was then occupied by a small population of sealers and whalers, and in 1836, the first official European colony settled on Kangaroo Island, establishing a tradition of agriculture. Nowadays, you can reach Kangaroo Island by plane, by boat, or by ferry from Cape Jervis. The eastern side of the island is the Dudley Peninsula, linked by a narrow neck to the larger part of the island. The main towns are Penneshaw, American River, Kingscote, and Pandana. Kangaroo Island has approximately 5,100 residents, but many visitors come over every year, so that in fact the number of people on the island can be much greater. All these cars and trucks driving very fast on our country roads cause many deaths and injuries among wildlife. Kangaroo Island is a very special place because it doesn't have the rabbits that have caused so much damage to the Australian flora and the foxes that have contributed to the decline and extinction of so many native animals after their introduction to other parts of Australia. Unfortunately, feral cats cause a lot of damage on the island, and a control program is underway. Often, curious native animals, such as this brush-tailed possum, find themselves in cat traps. Kangaroo Island is a biodiversity hotspot with amazing plant species. To protect natural communities, it's not enough to control cats, feral pigs, feral honeybees, and other invasive animals. We also need to control weeds. We have to battle many weeds on the island, including pine trees, the terrible bridal creeper and bridal veil, and now Tasmanian blue gums that escaped from plantations after the last bushfires. Our beautiful biodiversity starts with soil microorganisms and with the fungus kingdom.
Kangaroo Island is a very special place. It's very special for all sorts of things, but we find that the fungi of Kangaroo Island are absolutely magnificent. We've been coming over here doing our surveys of fungi, that is we, David, husband and I, since 2002. And we've been coming over every single year because it's so rich. There's so many different species of fungi. They're so beautiful. The beautiful ones, the really quite ugly ones too, but they've all got their own characters. And we reckon that there are probably about 750 species at least of fungi. Many of them are undescribed. We have described 2 new ones from the island, but I have got a list of quite a lot of other species which I have not yet described. Very rich, very diverse, and they are so helpful, they're so wonderful in the environment because there are the recyclers. They're the ones that break down the wood that builds up, and the leaf litter which builds up, and they break it down into materials that the plants can use, that the animals can use. And then there are, of course, the helpers, without which the plants couldn't possibly manage. You wouldn't get trees the size they are without their fungal partners. And they really do a wonderful job collecting nutrients and water for all the plants. Then, of course, we've had the awful fires on the island, but the fungi have been doing a magnificent job at growing carpets of beautiful orange and black and purple little disc fungi and other fungi all over the soil, cutting down the likelihood of erosion and making sure that the soil is in better state for the plants and animals which are going to come in after fire. So without the fungi on Kangaroo Island, the island would not be as wonderful as it is. It really is a wonderful island, and the fungi are doing their bit to make it so.
An association between a fungus and the roots of a plant is called a mycorrhiza. Most plants benefit from mycorrhizae, including in our biodiversity hotspot. Our beautiful terrestrial orchids have mycorrhizae.
Kangaroo Island has roughly 100 species of terrestrial orchids, that's orchids that grow in the ground, and they're very closely related to those on the mainland just across the water, which shows how all this land was once connected up. Some of them are very rare and some of them are very common, and they're all really unique little plants.
Many orchids are highly specialized, and they depend on numerous links in their ecosystems to be just right. That's why they're such good indicators of ecosystem health. Unfortunately, the populations of large numbers of orchid species have declined in Australia, and some are endangered, including on Kangaroo Island. The dominant, tallest plants in multiple vegetation communities on the island are 22 eucalypt species. They offer crucial habitat to animals from tiny insects to vertebrates and produce many flowers that are very important to nectar-feeding wildlife. Kangaroo Island endemic species, unique to the island, are found in different vegetation communities across the island, reminding us it has been isolated for quite a long time. Whether you like big plants like this grass tree, several hundred years old, or this tiny and rare trigger plant There's something for everyone on Kangaroo Island. The diversity of vegetation communities is a delight for an explorer. You don't have to go far to find completely different plants and habitats. At the base of the food chain in these habitats, invertebrates also perform many other vital ecosystem services, such as nutrient cycling, pest control, and of course, pollination. The island has dozens of species of native bees. Honeybees are not native to Australia. All our invertebrates are fascinating. This male wasp was tricked by the scent of the orchid, thinking it was a female wasp. It's now carrying the pollinia, and if tricked again, will pollinate another orchid. This Camponotus terebrans will mine a urine patch in sand for a month to extract all the nitrogen. Dr. Tony Robinson tells me we have around 10 species of snails and slugs on the island, and the same number of introduced ones. Spiders are among my favorite invertebrates, from tiny ones to much heftier ones.
So I'm a spider scientist and I live and work on Kangaroo Island. Now, Kangaroo Island is an amazing place for spiders. So the species I work on are species that have very small ranges. So they're found in one area and nowhere else in the world. And the species I work on Kangaroo Island are only known from Kangaroo Island. Because they've got such small ranges, it makes them really vulnerable to threats such as fire or flood or land clearance, which can take away their whole range, all of their habitat in one go. Now, I know most people don't like spiders. I get that. But spiders are really important to our natural world. Spiders are predators, and as such, they have a really important job for keeping control of the numbers of the species they eat, so keeping the whole ecosystem in check and in balance.
Invertebrates are food for many of our vertebrates, including frogs and reptiles.
Kangaroo Island is home to 25 species of reptile and amphibian, 6 species of frog call Kangaroo Island home, as well as 19 reptile species, which include 2 geckos, a legless lizard that only eats ants, 2 dragons, a goanna, 11 species of skink, and 2 snakes. Kangaroo Island is also a stronghold for 2 reptile species, the pygmy copperhead, which is a small venomous snake native only to South Australia, as well as the heath monitor, which is also called the Rosenberg's goanna.
Rosenberg's goanna is the largest natural predator on Kangaroo Island, and Kangaroo Island is the last stronghold for Rosenbergs. We've learned a lot about goannas in the last few years. We know that they lay their eggs only in termite mounds. The young come out and they have to live for at least 10 years before they're sexually mature.
Other beautiful vertebrates include birds. Of over 260 bird species recorded for the island, 17 are endemic subspecies. Our birds feed on many things, from invertebrates to berries, floral nectar and pollen, and even fish. The endangered Kangaroo Island glossy black cockatoo has a highly restricted diet consisting mostly of sheoak seeds. The dwarf emu became extinct with European settlement, as did several mammal species. Among the remaining mammal species, some are common and some threatened. We have pinnipeds, including the long-nosed fur seal and Australian sea lion, bushrat, swamp rat, brush-tail and ringtail possums, an endemic dunnart, a bandicoot, 2 pygmy possum species, several insectivorous bat species, and a delightful echidna.
Kangaroo Island echidnas are really, really special. They're one of the few egg-laying mammals in the world, along with the platypus. And on Kangaroo Island, our echidna is actually endangered. And we know that because we've had over 35 years of research about the echidna. They have long lives. They only reproduce every 2nd or 3rd year, and they live for 50 years. They are amazing.
And of course, we have the beautiful Kangaroo Island Kangaroos and Tammar Wallabies. Our western grey kangaroos are different from those on the mainland. They had not seen people for thousands of years when Matthew Flinders arrived on Kangaroo Island, and were so tame that he and his crew killed many for food, and he named the island after them. Introduced mammal species include house mice, black rats, cats and pigs, but also the Australian native platypus and koala. Oh, and look, there's a leopard on that tree. The marine environment is just as spectacular as the terrestrial one, but less well known. Different whale, dolphin, and fish species travel the Southern Ocean near Kangaroo Island. The coastline is rugged, with many cliffs and dangerous conditions that have resulted in shipwrecks. But beaches allow access to the keen snorkelers. Seagrasses, algae, and reefs host many creatures, and some of them, including fish of all sorts and colors, can be seen very close to the shore. Local artists such as Suzanne Trethui, Rose Stoll, Peter Hastwell, Sharon Clifford, Linda Jenkins, Indiana James, and many others find inspiration in the nature of Kangaroo Island. The island is one of the few westernized places on Earth to retain some wilderness. People come from all over the world to see the beautiful scenery such as the first European explorers would have encountered, and the unique wildlife. On Kangaroo Island, you can feel as if you were the first human being to see it. True wilderness can be seen in very few other places on Earth. It's very precious, yet it is threatened. Although the island boasts world-renowned national parks, including Flinders Chase National Park, wilderness protection areas, and other protected areas, alarming developments are taking place that threaten our public protected areas, including the authorization by the previous state government to build private developments, a golf course and private housing development will soon cover the Aboriginal artifacts and the rare flora of this coastal conservation reserve at the narrowest part of the island. It's a corridor for wildlife, an important place ecologically, spiritually, and archaeologically. Private hotel modules are scheduled to be built in our beloved Flinders Chase, biodiversity hotspot, the last wilderness with no fox or rabbit. The destruction of native vegetation is the primary threat to Kangaroo Island. It's also threatened by fires, natural and prescribed, and the effects are made worse by climate change. The summer 2019-2020 bushfires devastated half of the island on the western side. Many people lost their homes and 2 men died. Countless animals died in the fires or afterwards. Some people believe that prescribed burns are going to make it less likely that the island will burn in the future. However, when fires are too frequent, they dry up the bush and kill plants and animals whose populations are unable to rebuild before the next fire. Places that have burnt burn again, and they are drier, poorer, and weedy. Other threats to nature include the impacts of tourism, for example, driving on beaches where vulnerable bird species are nesting, invasive species, increasing temperature, pollution. In the last few years, I've observed the decline in the health of seagrasses, which are covered in epiphytes. Is it a combined effect of nitrogen pollution and increasing temperature? Fortunately, on Kangaroo Island, we have many good people. Individuals and local organizations have come together to control weeds and invasive animals, to monitor birds and other wildlife, and to help the island recover from the bushfires.
So we've set up 100 shared monitoring sites across the island and developed a number of resources to help people to identify and monitor birds in the same place over time using standardised survey methods that are directly loaded into an app called Bird Data. So this is our Kangaroo Island bird identification booklet, helping to monitor the impacts of fire.
With some of my colleagues, I've been looking at the ecology of grass trees after the bushfires, including nectar production. Flower spikes grew after the fires, and millions of nectar-rich flowers went to waste because all the pollinators were gone. Among other research projects, we're also investigating the role of nest boxes in the recovery of insectivorous bats and pygmy possums. We're monitoring nearly 1,000 nest box cavities, all made and deployed by volunteers on 13 properties. Some are for bats, others for our 2 pygmy possum species, western pygmy possums and little pygmy possums. Bats are becoming a little bit more common in the boxes, but western pygmy possums have been recorded almost exclusively in unburned patches of habitat. Some have even been breeding successfully, making all the volunteers involved in the project very happy. We have not found a single little pygmy possum so far in our boxes and are concerned about this species since it's one of the ones that have lost most of their home range to the bushfires. We're surveying bats acoustically all over the island and also trapping them to collect DNA and measurements because little is known of the bats of Kangaroo Island. It's a great adventure. Although islands represent less than 7% of the world's terrestrial areas, they host around 20% of biodiversity and 50% of the threatened species. 75% of species extinctions since Europeans spread around the world have been on islands. Islands are extremely important to study ecology, biogeography, evolution, and conservation. Each species depends on a multitude of other species to survive and on the natural landscape. We cannot protect them in isolation. We must protect entire ecosystems. Like most islands, Kangaroo Island is threatened by increasing human population pressure, leading to native vegetation and habitat loss. The impacts of invasive species and prescribed and natural fires and the threat of sea level rise are also made worse by climate change. However, everyone can make a difference anywhere. If you care, lobby your politicians, educate others, and restore your local habitats. You can help to save the little bit of nature we have left, the millions of years of history it represents, and the vital ecosystem services it provides us.
All right. Topa, congratulations. What a great video. What a great overview of the island, the conservation, the challenges, and of course, some hope at the end that there's so many dedicated individuals doing whatever they can to help preserve the ecosystems and the wildlife on Kangaroo Island. Oh, Topa, can you grab the mic? It's just on mute.
I was saying if there's any hope, it's from the children.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Topa, while we were watching the video, I pulled together a little Kahoot quiz for the students. So they know what to do now. I'm going to put a banner up on the screen. So there it is, kahoot.it. When you visit that on your phone or on your computer, your iPad, whatever you have handy, it's going to ask you for a PIN number. And I'm going to share my screen one more time. And I'm going to give you that PIN number right now. So here's my entire screen. There's our PIN number for today. If you're using a phone or a tablet, you can scan the QR code. Otherwise, you can type in 581-7681. So we'll keep that up on the screen for a couple moments to see if we get a few students coming in and joining us. And then we'll have a little go at this quiz and see who comes out on top. Who is our Kangaroo Island champion for today? So there's 5 questions today. It's a little mixture of some multiple choice and some true and false. You have 20 seconds for each question. If you get the answer right, you get points. If you get it right really fast, you get even more points. If you get it wrong really quickly, well, that doesn't change anything. You got to get it right, and you got to do it as quickly as you can to get those bonus points. All right, I'll give maybe 10 more seconds for a few more groups to come in and join us. Looks like we've got a good crew ready to go. All right, let's get things started. First question coming up, front and center, is a fill in the blank. Or sorry, it's a multiple choice. Kangaroo Island is the blank island in Australia. Is it the largest, the smallest, the third largest, or the second largest island? So Kangaroo Island is the largest, the smallest, the third largest, or the second largest island in Australia. All right, good job. Most students went with the third largest. That's absolutely right. The Jolly Kitten is holding down first place right now. Let's go to our second question. This is a true or false question. Introduced rabbits have caused a lot of damage on Kangaroo Island. Is that true or is that false? Introduced rabbits have caused a lot of damage on Kangaroo Island. True or false? All right. Most students went with false, and we learned from Topa in that great video. Kangaroo Island is lucky in that introduced foxes and rabbits have not made it to the island. But we talked about cats. Cats did make it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What did that do to our leaderboard? Jolly Kitten still holding down that lead. Our next question. Fungi are really important because they cut down likelihood of erosion. They are recyclers. They're collectors of nutrients for plants. Or was it all of the above? So which of those important things do fungi do on the island? I think, if I recall, Topa, is it 750 species?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Good job, crew. All of the above is correct. They're so important on Kangaroo Island for many different things that they do for the ecosystem and for free. We couldn't replace all the things that they do.
That's right.
Okay, Jolly Kitten still holding the lead. A little movement down below. We're going to another true and false. Oh, no, this is another multiple choice. The largest natural predator on Kangaroo Island is the Rosenberg's iguana, the dingo, cats, or the assassin spider. So the largest natural predator. All right, Rosenberg's iguana is correct.
Well done.
All right, we have one final question, a true and false to wrap things up. Echidnas and platypus are the only mammals that lay eggs. Was that true or was that false? Echidnas and platypus are the only mammals that lay eggs. True or false? All right, good job, crew. That is absolutely true. Also known as the monotremes. And I lived in Australia for a year. I lived in Wollongong. And anytime I was out traveling or exploring, anytime I saw an echidna or a platypus was always an exciting time. Let's take a look at our leaderboard. In third place, we had the royal bison. In second place, the jolly kitten. Oh, and a new leader at the end. The focused cat. There you go. That's what focus can do for you. Determination, sneaking out that victory right at the end. Well, good job, crew. Thank you so much for playing along our little Kahoot today. Let me come back from that screen share. And now it's your time to take over. Use that chat sidebar. Of course, introduce yourself. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And then we are ready to take some of your live questions. And I can see Bibby Builds is celebrating in the chat, saying that they are the focused cat. They're the winner. So good job to Bibby Builds. And congratulations to everybody who played today and played along with our Kahoots. We always like to do a little interaction, a little competition. It's always friendly fun with the students. So we've got a question coming in here already. Topa, we've visited 5 different islands now, and we've heard the same story over and over again, how invasive species, generally brought by us, are causing so many issues on the islands. And so on a few of the islands, we heard about the yellow crazy ants and the red ants. Are there any invasive ant species on Kangaroo Island?
Not that I know of. No. There may be species from the mainland that didn't used to be there, but no one is very sure about ants.
Yeah.
There's lots of native ant species. So we don't have yet, let's cross fingers, we don't have a problem with invasive ants.
All right, great question. And I'd love to see some of the same students joining and learning about the islands, paying attention and wanting to know, what's similar and what's different on these very different islands and very different locations around Australia. Some of them really, really far away, closer to Indonesia than Australia. Okay, another question here. Afifa would like to know about some of the snake species. Can you tell us about some of the snake species on Kangaroo Island?
Well, we have a beautiful copperhead snake. Absolutely beautiful. It's only found in South Australia. And we have a black tiger snake that is also very beautiful. It can grow a lot bigger than the copperhead, a lot bigger. Sometimes you find them behind a bush and you go, oh my God, it's enormous. But they are usually very gentle and not too many snakes here, and very, very interesting species.
All right. Yeah, that's the thing about snakes. People definitely have a fear of snakes, but snakes have that same fear as us. The only way you're going to get bitten by a snake is if you're threatening them, or you just get really unlucky. You pick the wrong thing up or step in the wrong spot, and they're defending themselves just like you would do if you were stepped on. Yeah. So another question here. This one's right directed to you, Topa. They're wondering where are you from originally?
I was born in France and I grew up there. And then I've lived in many places since. But somehow I still speak like a weird language, don't I?
Well, I think probably the last name was a little bit of a clue as well. Very cool. And
Petit means small in French.
What a place to end up. I loved every second of my year in Australia, and oftentimes wish I could have stayed. It's such an amazing country, and the islands are just beautiful. Okay, a few more questions here. This is from Pitkin Homeschool. We've got Kalina and Maya tuning in. And Kalina wants to know about your favorite animal and why. And Maya wants to know your favorite plant and why on Kangaroo Island.
Oh, wow. They're such difficult questions. I love echidnas. Absolutely love echidnas. But I work with bats and pygmy possums. See, I work a lot on mammals, so I'm a little bit biased. Echidnas are just very amazing, but working with pygmy possums that pollinate a lot of trees, that's also very, very interesting. They're only this big and about 8 grams, and they're adult sizes. And I love bats because I've done a lot of bat research, and we have 7 known species on Kangaroo Island. But in fact, we think there are more species that have not yet been identified. It's very, very hard to study bats and catch bats on the island, but they are so fascinating. I love spiders as well. It's very hard to give you a single animal, but what I've noticed today is that a lot of you in the schools around Australia have animal names, or your groups have animal names that are not native to Australia. So maybe you can think about your favorite animal where you are and give your group that name next time. So that's for animals. For plants, I've worked a lot on orchids, and I've discovered a new orchid species that is beautiful. So I'm a little bit biased towards orchids, but you can't go past eucalyptus, and Eucalyptus rugosa is one of my favorites because pygmy possums love it. So yes, I just have too many favorites. This question is too hard, Joe. You need to give me easier questions.
That's okay. It's okay to love lots of things and to have certain favorites. Yeah, absolutely. It's always a hard question to answer for a naturalist, to answer what their favorite something is, their favorite animal, their favorite plant. Yeah, a hard question for sure. So we've got James and Henry tuning in, and they'd like to know about the kangaroo species. How many species of kangaroo are there, and about what's their number? What's their population size?
That's a very difficult question to answer again, and very good one. We only have 2 kangaroo species. We have the western grey kangaroos and the Tammar Wallabies on Kangaroo Island. The Tammar Wallabies became extinct on the mainland, which is very sad and unfortunate, but because they were safe on Kangaroo Island, we still have them there. We don't know how many there are because they're very difficult to count. There have been surveys done with drones and with vehicles all over the island, but we don't exactly know how many there are. Certainly the populations are not endangered. They do represent a large proportion of the roadkills on the roads, because they often come out at night and cross the road at night, and very often get run over. So we don't know exactly how many species there are, but something alarming to me has happened in the last couple of years, where now it's possible to hunt kangaroos for food, for the meat industry on Kangaroo Island. It hasn't been done yet, but it is legal. So we are a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, that was the toughest part to watch in the video that you shared, is things like the planned golf course and people driving on the beaches that could have birds nesting. It's, on one hand, tourism can be so important, right? Those tourism dollars are so important for helping conservation and people's livelihoods, especially when it's done right. But sometimes the tourism comes with those negative effects, like the golf course, like the driving on the beaches.
I think the driving could be improved. I mean, the road kills could decrease if the speed limit was lowered. The speed limit is pretty high on Kangaroo Island, and it doesn't need to be, really.
All right. Well, we have an echidna fan who wants to know if you've ever held an echidna before.
I most certainly have, and my hands were never the same again. Echidnas are so spiky, so spiky. I had to hold some when I worked with them before I radio tracked echidnas, And so you have to take them on your lap, otherwise they will bury themselves under the ground very, very quickly. So you can't pull them out. So once you see one, you have to grab it. Oh, and it's very, very spiky. But they roll themselves into a ball so that predators cannot eat them. And so there's a good purpose for these spines, and they work. They don't work so well with the younger echidnas. I show you some footage of a nursing echidna, younger echidna. They have fewer spikes, fewer spines, but they still become spiny pretty quickly to avoid predators. So the cats will eat echidnas. That is a big problem.
Okay, yeah, those feral cats. What about feral dogs? Any dogs on the island?
No, we don't have serious problems with feral dogs. We have poorly trained dogs and poorly trained dog owners who kind of let their dogs loose, and then the dogs will attack kangaroos and so on. But it's not a major problem on the island.
Yeah. That was so interesting, when you talked a little bit about the Aboriginal history on the island and that mystery where they left the island around 3,000 years ago. That's
yes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing mystery, absolutely amazing mystery, because when you look at the currents, and it's very difficult to travel in a canoe between the mainland and the island. Very difficult because there's very strong currents. But occasionally the sea will be very flat and the current will be reduced. So you would think it's about 17 kilometers between the mainland and the island, and you'd think that it would be possible. And I think that Aboriginal people would have been able to travel if they had wanted to.
Yeah.
So why they left, we don't know. There's no record that makes us think it may be one thing or the other. But the current Aboriginal people do not engage with Kangaroo Island for spiritual reasons.
Okay.
So it might have something to do with the spiritual value of the island to Aboriginal people, but we don't know for sure.
All right. Wow. Okay. So that brings me to a question here in the chat. You mentioned when the sailors visited, and one of them was Flinders, and who was the other one?
Baudin.
Okay.
How dare you not remember Baudin, Joe? He's French.
I'm sorry. So many great facts in the presentation. So many great facts. So roughly when was that? When was that when they visited the island?
That was around 1802.
1802. All right.
So that was the first Europeans then.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So relatively recent history.
Yes. Okay. And a lot of damage in a relatively short time.
That is something we seem to be very good at as a species, is changing things and taking things. Okay, we've got one more question here in the chat, and just a heads up to the students, we're just about at our stop time for today. So if you have a burning question out there, don't be shy to put the question in the chat. So this one's about the spiders. We saw that little interview with the spider expert, and we saw the cool picture of the assassin spider, among others. And so are there any species whose venom would be dangerous to humans on Kangaroo Island?
Well, we do have some redbacks, but they're supposed to have been introduced to Kangaroo Island.
Okay.
And so they don't necessarily belong to the island. They are very, very placid species. I have some at my campsite when I go there, and they're very gentle and they mind their own business. So I'm not worried at all.
Yeah.
So no, spiders are not a concern for us on Kangaroo Island.
Okay. And then Zainab is tuning in and would like to know about the koalas. I think you mentioned that they're introduced, but are they popular on Kangaroo Island?
They are super popular
Yeah.
with tourism.
Okay.
Because our population is very healthy.
Yeah.
It has been decimated by the bushfires of 2019-2020, where the population was huge and was causing a lot of damage to some trees. And then the bushfires killed a lot of the koalas. There's only 5,000 to 8,000 left now. But they were introduced to the island in 1926 as a conservation place because people could see they were not doing so well on the mainland.
Yeah.
So then they put them on the island, which then became a problem. So we don't know what will happen with koalas in the future. Because if their population increases more, it could cause more problems.
Yeah, I imagine on the mainland they have predators, so that kind of helps keep the population in check. But if they're moved somewhere where they
they're affected by a disease, chlamydia, but on Kangaroo Island they're much healthier than they are on the mainland. So we don't really want to get rid of the koalas on the island.
Sure.
But at the same time, we don't want the population to explode so that it will damage the vegetation.
All right. Let's squeeze in one more question here, Topa. Maya would like to know, maybe you can show us on your hand about how big is the biggest spider species in Kangaroo Island? That big?
The huntsman spiders, I showed a photo in the video. The huntsman spiders, some of them are enormous. They're also very, very gentle, very patient.
Yeah.
Do you know that I was courted once by a huntsman spider?
Wow.
I was working at night on a tree, on the flowers of a tree, and I felt something go like this. And I thought, oh, what is that? I was busy. What is that? And then it was this male spider just doing this to my face. It was the weirdest thing. Oh! But they're very gentle and very patient and lovely spiders.
Yeah, I know that from experience. They used to get into our apartment sometimes. And I'd always just put my hand and let it gently kind of onto my hand. And you could just take them outside and put them back outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love huntsman spiders.
Very, very cool. Well, Topa, I want to start off with a big shout out to our classrooms, our students, our homeschool students as well for joining us today, sending in so many great questions. I recognize a lot of groups here that have been with us for all 5 of our lessons. So that's so cool.
That's fantastic.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for playing the Kahoot quizzes. It's always fun to interact that way. And Topa, thank you for a great introduction to Kangaroo Island. And that was such a great little documentary. So much information jam-packed into just over 20 minutes. Great pictures. That was awesome. Yeah.
Thank you all for watching as well. And I hope all the classes will become involved in conservation projects. Remember that we have lots of issues facing Australia and that you can help make the Australia better.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important is you don't have to wait till you're an adult. There's lots you can do now, even if it's just as simple as telling people what you've learned.
Exactly.
It can be hugely important, but there's lots of things that you can do from fundraising to volunteering for projects. Start your own organization and clean beaches and things like that. There's so much that our youth can do to get involved.
And it will not happen without children. So it's up to you guys to make a start and help the plants and the animals and the fungi.
All right. Well, I'm going to share a couple links one more time. A huge shout out to Jane Goodall Institute Australia. Here's the website here for Roots and Shoots if you want to check it out and register. And then, of course, we'll share their Facebook group one more time. And then, yeah, I can't wait until the resource boxes arrive and you're able to hold the copy of Australia's Amazing Islands, Volume 1, in your hand, and research not only the 5 islands that we visited Christmas Island and Norfolk Island. We visited Lord Howe Island and Gari. And Lord Howe Island. That was our 5th island. We visited Lord Howe Island as well. And it was just a great series. And there's more islands to discover. So thank you, students. It was so much fun. And Topa, thank you so much. What a great pleasure to host you tonight, and so much good information.
Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on Kangaroo Island.
All right, we are going to sign off for today. Have a great week, everyone.